If you're just joining in, we're just going to give it one more minute to let people get started, and we'll go through this. We are in a webinar format, so if you do have questions, you can write in the Q&A, please. All right, let's get started. Like I just mentioned, we're in a webinar format. I know some more people just joined in. So if you do have any questions, type them into the Q&A. Either we'll get to them during the presentation or we will reserve some time at the end for some questions. But my name's Candace Ruda, and I am a program coordinator here in the Global Experience Office. I also manage the off-campus humanities and arts application process. And you'll hear a little bit more about that as we get into the presentation. But this webinar is really designated for first-year students. So welcome to WPI. We hope your first few weeks have been going well. And you're getting used to the fast pace of everything here. We are happy that you are starting to think about off-campus projects now. I'm here to give you an overview of program options, and we can talk about things that you can be thinking about now for IQP and answer any questions you have. So let's get started. So there are 3 different project graduation requirements that all WPI students must complete. There are off-campus opportunities for each of these projects. However, you don't have to complete any of them off campus if you don't want to, or you can complete all of them off campus if you want to, or if you are able to. So typically the IQP interactive qualifying project is the most popular time that students want to go off campus, and they will complete it at some point during their junior year. But first in the sequence typically is the Humanities and Arts project. So that can be completed as soon as the summer between your first and second year. And the application process for this will start at the beginning of B term, and projects take place this coming summer, E21. They're unique in the types of experiences that they offer. If you complete an off-campus humanities and arts project, it does waive the depth and breadth requirement, but the humanities projects all vary. There's different locations. We'll get to that in the next slide. The directors of the humanities and arts projects are hosting a separate session tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So if you would like to learn more specifically about those and hear directly from the center directors, we do encourage you to tune into that or watch it on YouTube Live after if you can't attend the live recording. But keep in mind that each of the projects for humanities and arts may have a prerequisite associated with it. Typically, you have to have a couple of humanities and arts courses completed before the start of the project, because the humanities and arts is really a capstone to the end of that requirement. So these are the 5 or 6 program options for off-campus humanities projects. You can check in with the directors of the sites, like I said, for tomorrow's live recording. And new this year is a humanities and arts opportunity in Taipei, Taiwan, which we're pretty excited about. But London, Japan, Taiwan, and Buenos Aires are all offered during E-term. And the Rabat, Morocco Humanities and Arts Center is actually the only one that takes place during the academic year. And for D22, for next year, it will be offered in D22. Historically, had been offered in C-term. So we're excited about that change as well. And then on the bottom, you'll see Constance, Germany, which is not quite a humanities and arts project, but more of an exchange program. And you're technically off campus for 2 terms. So it does start in D21 and then you would finish up your semester in July, late June, early July. What does the IQP stand for? So it's Interactive Qualifying Project. It is WPI's largest off-campus program offered through the Global Projects Program. It's an experiential general education requirement, typically completed in the junior year, like I mentioned. And students participate in a cohort of 24 students with 2 WPI faculty advisors. You're focused on projects at a single project center location, and the cohorts are typically divided into teams of 3 to 4 students, all from different majors, and you are completing projects, or teams are solving problems at the intersection of science, technology, and society. Students and faculty work together with communities in Worcester and around the world to solve authentic problems proposed by nonprofits, NGOs, and government agencies. So just one additional thing to mention is that the interactive or interdisciplinary piece is really important. To note that this project is not meant to be completed as part of a sequence specifically in your major. So you could be working with students who are robotics. You could have a team of students that's, a robotics major, biomechanical. So you're working with all different kinds of people. So there are a number of learning goals for the IQP, whether you're completing that on campus or off campus. But most students will say that the preparation for the off-campus IQP and the project itself are some of the most writing intensive courses that they take while they're at WPI. Don't worry if you're not a strong writer. There are opportunities for all students to contribute in meaningful ways to the projects. And students also develop critical professional skills such as communicating effectively with project sponsors and teammates, and presentation and public speaking skills. So how is the IQP structured? Like I said, whether you participate in the Global Projects Program, which is the off-campus IQP, all students must complete an IQP in order to graduate. And these projects are not intended to be related to your major, although you may be assigned to a project that draws upon some of the skills that you've learned in major-specific courses. There are 2 ways to complete the IQP requirement. Global Projects Program off-campus option is designed to be completed in 1 term, whereas with a preparatory research methods or ID 2050 course in the term prior to the project, and a 1/6 PQP or project proposal course that is also taken in the term prior to the project. So students are not assigned to their exact project actually until the term prior to when the prep term, right before the prep term starts. So you want to think about when you get ready to apply for the IQP, what terms are going to work best for you to do that, and not necessarily which specific project that may have been completed at that center. So we can talk more about that later on. But the other way to complete the IQP is by way of an on-campus IQP, which is completed over the course of 3 terms, and it usually does not require you to take ID 2050 or a project preparation course. And then if you are interested in doing an on-campus IQP, there will be an on-campus IQP, not activities fair, on-campus opportunities fair held in March for those students for the following year. So why should you do a project off campus? Even if the learning outcomes seem similar to the things that you would learn in any course, there are some things that separate the on-campus projects from off-site projects. In an off-campus environment, you're working 40 hours a week, sometimes in a non-traditional work environment. So there's a lot of self-motivation that needs to happen during the workday and to follow up on project tasks, different than being in a regular classroom setting. And whether you're in Nantucket or Cape Town or Albania or Bar Harbor, you're getting a perspective on how the world works and how cultures differ in their problems and ideas. Many students come back to WPI with, or back from their project, I should say, with an understanding of deeper connections between communities and the environment. WPI provides a unique experience to travel and do a project in a different region or country, which can boost your professional appeal in the future. How many people can say that they've worked on fire safety in Nantucket or beekeeping in Greece or a historical preservation project in Venice? So these projects not only give you great things to talk about during interviews, but also gives you a lot of exposure to people skills that you need to have the successful interviews. So all of our projects are, all the program opportunities, whether they're humanities and arts, IQP or MQP, are all located on eProjects. So you can browse program options there, and you, while doing so, you should find answers to the following questions. What projects or topics have been featured at this site? Is there a Project Center website featuring more information? Where do you live when you're at this site? Is it a hotel, an apartment, on a separate college campus? What's your Project Center city like? Is it rural? Is it urban? Metropolitan? Metropolitan World Center? And then you'll also find information about costs of the program. So billable costs are the housing and program fee, which will appear on your WPI bill. And then you'll also find estimated expenses, which range from round trip transportation to on-site commuting costs, meals, and then estimated budgets for tourist activities that you may want to do at your Project Center location. So if you have additional questions about individual circumstances, you can also schedule an appointment with a member of the Global Experience Office team. So that'd be myself, other program coordinators. We have 2 assistant directors and then the director of the program, as well as an associate director of health and safety and risk management. So what things can you be working on now? What can prepare you for your IQP? You can use your first year here at WPI to start preparing for the application process and the IQP experience while you're getting settled in on campus, or if you're remotely, just getting used to working with people on campus here. So first, it's important to build relationships with faculty. You will need a recommendation from for your IQP application from a WPI faculty. So it's helpful to get to know at least one so that they can recognize you by name. And you can do this by attending office hours, going to extra study sessions, or other things like that if they're hosting additional things outside of the classroom. Second, you can seek out opportunities on campus to get involved, join a club or organization. I know the activities fair was just last week, to get to know some upperclassmen who can help give you some advice about the process, or maybe just share their experiences with you. You should also explore interests with the clubs and extracurricular activities. And it's important to show that you have varied interests and involvement on campus, or if you have opportunity to finally work in teams. So there should be opportunities for teamwork within different classes that you're in. Think about what your role is in a team setting and what you help to contribute to a team. So, finally, enjoy yourself and try to do the best that you can academically. And remember that there are resources on campus to help you along the way, including the Academic Advising Center, Writing Center, departmental TAs, and your Insight Team, CARA. So beginning with the class of 2022, all first-year students did receive a global scholarship to support participation in a program. So if you want to finish early or take grad classes, maybe you might consider using your scholarship for the Humanities and Arts project. But we also encourage you to take advantage of all off-campus projects if possible. Many students who do their Humanities and Arts project off campus do tend to want to go off campus again and do their IQP off campus. And in some cases, depending on your major, you may be able to complete all 3 projects off campus. So whatever project path you end up taking, we encourage you to use the scholarship for the first opportunity, just because things happen and you never know if you may or may not be able to pursue an off-campus project in the future. So just think about that. If you want to learn more about how to apply the scholarship, you can visit wpi.edu/plus global scholarship. All right, so some of the next steps, like I said, explore all of the options, and they can all be found on eprojects.wpi.edu. Please attend, if you can, the upcoming info sessions for the humanities and arts opportunities. And then at the end of this year, we will typically hold an info session for rising sophomores to outline the IQP process and tips to help students begin to prepare over the summer. So we weren't able to do that at the end of last year, but you've probably seen the newsletters that have gone around. We've been sending those to all undergraduates here to help get the word out about the process and help students to feel prepared earlier than we've ever been able to do before. So we're really excited about that. And if you haven't seen that, and you have more questions specifically about the IQP process, you can visit those at off-campus projects at wpi.edu/plus off-campus IQP. Erin, is that true?
That's correct.
Okay.
wpi.edu/plus off-campus IQP.
Mm-hmm. That's all I have. Do people have specific questions?
Hi, Candace. There's just a couple of questions here. Have students in the past studied abroad more than once? And if so, what's the process for doing so?
So we have had what we like to call triple dippers in the past year. We had one who was, I thought we had one who worked in our office, maybe not, but we had one student who at least completed 2 projects off campus who worked in our office. So the way that that would be structured is that you would try to coordinate with your schedule. It really is about planning ahead. And if you know that you want to make that a priority, then work with the academic advising office to identify how you can make that happen. You would typically do maybe an e-term project in London for humanities and arts. And then in your sophomore year, you are applying for the off-campus IQP, and you can complete that at any time in your junior year. And then depending on your major, you may have opportunities to do your major qualifying project, which is really more designed to be major specific in your senior year.
Thanks. I have another question. When do students sign up for e-term IQPs that take place during the summer of 2022?
So we do have options for students to rate E22 sites in this cycle's application process. So we are placing students in E21, which is this coming summer, but also if students know that they want to complete that in E22, they can complete the application and indicate on their preference form that they would like to be placed in an E22 project.
And just one more. So what do you think might be the likelihood of travel for 2022?
2022?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we are just continuing to monitor the current global climate and situation, and we, as soon as it's safe to resume travel in any capacity, we will do so. But we will just continue to monitor things and take things as we go. Of course, we want students to be able to complete these projects and be able to travel and have those wonderful experiences that so many students have had, and something that our office really, this is our passion. This is what we come to work for every day. So if Erin would like to add anything additional to that.
Sorry, Candace.
That's okay.
No, I think you said it right, that It's our hope and plan that travel can resume as quickly as possible, but we need to do it safely. So what we've talked about with the sophomores is that they should be thinking about the terms that work for them for their project experience with IQP. And we will make sure that they have IQPs that work for them in those terms, and that if travel is possible to go to those places, that happens. And hopefully not any longer. But if it needs to be a remote project, then that's an option as well. The nice thing about the design of the IQP specifically is that the goals of it can be reached remotely or in person. So it's, it's not all is not lost if travel is not possible.
So for the IQP, how does one request to go to a specific location or country?
So the off-campus IQP application also has a project preference form associated with that. And you can and should, if you are applying this year for an off-campus IQP, should watch the How to Apply video. It'll explain a little bit more about how students are required to rate every single project center as very interested, or not interested. So if you are very interested in going to London, for example, there are a few different terms that project runs, but there really is no way to guarantee that you would be placed in that specific project center. So that's where we ask students to maintain a level of flexibility in looking at their options. And if D term really works the best for you, then you should consider all of the program offerings, project center locations, or projects that happen in that particular term.
Thanks. Candace, is it preferred that students know the language of the region or country of the project? Is it a requirement for applying?
It's not, for most project center locations, it's not a requirement to have a specific level of language. However, you can find that information if there's a particular project center that you had a question about, that should be designated on the eProjects page. So for a project center like Paraguay, for example, students really need to be at a certain level because they're completing their project presentation. Their final presentation is completed in Spanish. They're working with sponsors who really are not proficient in English. So for certain project center locations, it's designated on the application or the project center page, whether or not you would need a certain language level. For a project center like Japan, you will spend some time doing some language prep as part of getting ready to travel to that location or complete a project there, but it's not a requirement that you would have a specific level of Japanese language skills in order for you to be considered for that project center location.
Thanks, Candace. That's all we have for questions here.
Okay. Is there one more that just came through? I think I saw.
If we were to have family or relatives near the project center, could accommodations be made?
I think the question is accommodations for you to stay with that relative. Is that the question?
I assume that's what the question is, yes.
Okay, so we typically have not allowed students to live outside of our project center housing, and maybe Erin can explain this a little bit further, but typically we would want all of the students who are in that cohort to be in the student housing just for health and safety purposes, but you're certainly welcome to travel and be visiting with your family in location as long as it doesn't interfere with your project center work.
I think you covered that well, Candace. I'll just echo that the students who do travel to project centers are required to live in the WPI provided housing.
Looks like that's it, Candace.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining today. Thank you to my lovely colleague Deb for answering the questions or asking the questions so that we can answer them. And if you have additional questions that come up, you can always email global@wpi.edu. And we had a virtual town hall this afternoon that covered a lot about the IQP process. So if you want to take a look at that, that is available on the YouTube channel.